No, I thought it was Eber's beard, man.
Yes! I want it for that.
Just wonder what that blinky thing was. Maybe it was the file.
It's also extremely useful.
It's working now. I'll probably stop rummaging once I find a MiFi card. I misplace it somewhere.
Thanks for bringing up this topic.
I'll be hunting for it.
Yeah, let's get started.
So the People's Plan.
So the People's Plan.
Who's done what?
What is that?
Good idea to start there.
Does somebody want to explain what that is? Lars will explain what that is.
I will, yeah. So beginning in December of last year, there was a proposal from Orlando to come up with a list of demands, basically, or objectives, to present to the Florida State Legislature on opening day, January 10th, of the Florida State Legislature. And the idea was that local occupiers would come up with the demands or objectives. The reason I use both terms is because demands ended up being a controversial term for some. And then get consensus locally and bring that to the State Assembly in Tallahassee for ratification by that grouping. And it turned out to be kind of a debacle in a way. We had a 13-hour GA in Tallahassee trying to figure out how that worked because people came back with very different ideas of what the process was going to look like. So some occupiers worked really hard to ratify the proposals that came out of Orlando. Others worked less hard. Does that cover it?
Point of information. Some cities had the ability to meet more often than other cities.
Other cities were not particularly interested in legislative demands. Also, other cities that were not at Orlando did not get it in between the time of Orlando and Tallahassee. So there was some confusion with that.
Oh, quite.
Oh, yeah.
Jane,
Okay.
right?
Yeah. What were some of the individual cities? What did you guys come up with?
Can't hear you.
What did individual cities come up with?
As within Tallahassee, St. Pete re-ratified. We approve everything on that list. We have no amendments. We have no exclusions. We approved everything.
So there are 57 items. Each is about a paragraph long. It's like 20 pages altogether. I mean, it's really freaking long. It took us several hours just to read through them. And so some cities like ratified them all. Some cities made amendments to some and ratified some. And some cities didn't even freaking look at it. So that's why, like, this discussion is meant to be just 10 minutes to kind of address it and maybe, like, see if there's something, in my opinion, something to salvage moving forward.
So Katerina, Jasmine, and Brando are next on staff.
Yeah, so I guess a good way to continue forward is to try to internalize and think about the fact that legislative session is over, and a part of our intent, or at least any sort of conceivable intent that we discussed at large, was, actually presenting this to the legislature and, protesting based on these things that we agreed we wanted, as well as something to just outline what it is we stand for and how we can actively come up with solutions for what we've all agreed that we specifically stand for. So, I guess moving forward with this, the demands, I guess that's kind of how I imagine our intent to be, and I think by stating it, it might solidify for some people what the importance of working on it is. solutions to the problems that we all love to talk about and identify as the problems that they are. But the solutions, well, we have to identify.
So Jasmine, Brando, Karen, Whistler, oh, is that a point of clarification, Whistler?
Are we seeking to come up with a proposal or a clarification of this list, or exactly what?
Brando?
We're just sharing where we're at on this, and sharing where we're at on this. The next part would be
just information for those who haven't seen it yet as well. If there's amendments on there, some of them are just a one-word change to whatever the bullet point is to. So it's not that something has been completely reworked, but it could be like what we had last night where someone disagreed with one word, so they have one city has one word changed in it. You know.
Brando?
I was just gonna throw out, it's not a direct proposal for this moment, because I think this is something that in the end we have to fully talk out some more. But I was gonna end up just suggesting how I still really support it and love to keep working on it with people, and I really was just thinking, People's Convention of Florida did give a list of expectations to the legislature. So I mean, if in the future, just as a thing to fruit for thought while we progress on this, is one thing we can end up finding out is now that we gave the expectations, if each city ends up with difficulty over certain things, each city can give its own list of the actual final demands that it gave based off of these expectations.
Karen?
I guess I appreciate that some people are really inspired by this idea. I guess I personally am not terribly inspired by asking the legislature to fix things. I would rather just work on it myself with other people. Not myself, but together collectively. I don't know. I guess yeah, I don't know. That's fine. I mean, I guess I just don't. Not that I don't care what happens to it, but I would rather use it as a list of things that we could work on in other ways.
Is it possible for me to get on stack and relinquish facilitation while I'm...
Yes, and there's 1, 2, 3, 5, 4 people ahead of you.
Okay, that's fine.
You willing to facilitate in the meantime?
Huh?
You willing to facilitate while he's...
I want anybody. I'll
I'll facilitate, yeah, because I don't...
And Brando had a point of information.
That's true, dude. I was just gonna point out that some people aren't, even though they're playing with this process. Personally, I wasn't asking the legislature to do any of this. I was telling them they need to do this because things are going to change if they don't. I don't know how things are going to change, but I was just giving them a damn good suggestion that this is some shit they need to fix.
So, Katerina, Lars, Tommy, Jasmine, Jane, Nathan, you're not on? Okay. Jane, and Nathan.
Yeah,
I'll say it
so-
again, but I'm just letting you know that I really did get you. You're going to get the speed.
Yeah, so to respond to a couple of different things that I heard, I think, again, I think the intent with it, while having had been to, I think the intent with it, while having been possibly to present it to the legislature and however we ended up doing that, is beside the point, but actually in an organized fashion addressing what it is that we're concerned with. And, well, how can we actively find those solutions? No matter how we find those solutions, whether it's approaching legislature or doing it on our own, unless we identify those problems specifically. And another thing that I wanted to maybe throw out there was that I don't think it's necessarily fair, which is my main criticism of what we've been doing here, is that I don't think it's necessarily fair that we've been, putting off addressing this and not allowing people who really do want to work on this and really do want to get going on the process with it, while, just because, maybe we have certain specific contingencies with it or there's other things that come up. So I guess my point is that maybe we want to, and this is something that Jasmine and I talked about, maybe we want to make a working group for the people's plan, and so that those people that actively really want to work on this will be constantly working on what this would look like and how we would actually apply the solution.
Lars?
30 seconds.
We need more time.
We have 5 more minutes to talk about this.
Yeah, so, I mean, with respect to creating a People's Plan working group, that people have been empowered to do that forever. There's nobody standing in your way. In fact, I think it was suggested in Tallahassee in January that there be a People's Plan working group. My sense is that people remember, oh yeah, the People's Plan, and then it's all like sort of externalizing the blame for why it hasn't been happening. My analysis on the thing is that there are just multiple issues going on there. There's this issue of representation. There's like, we're having these discussions about what it means, what the People's Plan is, what it's intended to do. Some people see it as a suggestion to the legislature. Other people, not exactly a point of information, say it's a demand. But so there's all this discussion about like what it actually is. My thinking has actually changed on how it could be useful. I think it could be really good if we just left aside all these questions of representation and consensus and whatever, and just saw it as a brainstorming activity for Occupy Florida, and then put it online as a resource. Here's like all this work has gone into coming up with these ideas on some of the stuff that we would like to see, like energy and whatever else, like, and just put it out there as a resource for people to access, and then it could just grow from there, with links to people who are experts in the different fields and stuff. I think that would be great as a resource, and would take out the whole thing of having to send it back to local, I mean, that's the part that's been thorny as hell, is trying to figure out what does it even mean, who is Occupy Florida, who are the occupies, what are they each doing? Occupy Gainesville doesn't give a fuck. I mean, honestly, most of the people I've talked to in Occupy Gainesville are like, okay, whatever.
So Tommy, Jane, Nathan, Evan, and Brando.
Yeah, I was going to say something similar about having it online and continuing the development of it and the brainstorm of it, because I haven't been to any of the people's conventions, and I haven't talked at length about this with people, and I feel like I need a lot of time to think about what is on there, especially if it's 20 pages long. That I mean, I might agree with a lot of it, but I still it might take a long time for me to understand all those things, and that's why I think it's better looked at as not a point of demanding and that this is the line we drew in the sand, but that these are the ideas that we're developing and working on, and what we'd like to see our state legislator doing for the people of Florida.
2 minutes.
So there were 2 point of information. Jasmine had hers up first, and then Brando.
This is online in an editable Google document, as well as on the Facebook group of the Spokes Council of Florida, and also an editable document. So it's been pretty much online since December when we first started doing it.
The other information, just so you know, when looking to see what statement the People's Convention of Florida did come up with, that is only 1 page long, and it's very concise, and it's very, after the 13 hours, I'm so glad that they came up with that. It's 1 page long, and it would definitely relate you to the other 20 pages worth your research.
So Jane.
Cool. So it's called the People's Plan, not the legislature's plan.
Can you speak up a little, please?
I think that since it's called the People's Plan, the legislature really doesn't have all that much to do with it, because it's not in their interest to really be working on these things, and they probably like, no offense, got the shit and went, like,
1 minute.
so, I think it should just be thought of as, like, a to-do list. And I suggest that individual cities become adaptable to the things that are on the list and choose a campaign one thing at a time. Don't overwhelm yourselves. Work really hard on one thing at a time, and then you'll see results.
Nathan?
Do you want to address time real quick?
30 seconds.
Let's address time real quick.
Proposal is to close stack and finish it, instead of adding more time to things.
Close stack, finish it.
Does everybody feel okay with that?
Ooh, yeah. Okay, as far as Tampa and this goes, we had a lot of trouble with it at first in terms of trying to work out, because it was our understanding that we would bring these back to our local cities for full revisions when other cities did not get that impression, and we did full revisions of everything. So we're basically done with it no matter what. Like, we're not going to work on it anymore, I can almost promise you that. But I can tell you guys that if you want to get consensus out of, I think it's a good idea what Lars is saying and what people are saying in terms of Occupy Florida is just whoever's here and you guys can draft that statement. I think that that's a really good way to look at it, and in terms of brainstorming and whatnot. However, if you want to get consensus at a local level and do it through that median and do it the way how we were originally thinking about doing it, which I don't necessarily think we should, but if you want to do that, it just takes a working group. It took us 4 days of a lot of time, but 4 days of hard work to run through all of that. And I understand that some cities can't meet every day, and it's not necessarily going to take 4 days, but if you meet once a week, you can finish it in a month. Full revision, everything. I can almost guarantee that, because it's not that hard to do. It just takes a working group who is focused on that and open to everybody, and if everybody in your occupation is touching it and is working on it, when it gets up for consensus, we had no trouble getting it past the GA, because everybody had been working on it way beforehand. So everybody knew what they were getting consensus on long before we got consensus on it. So I think it's very viable to go back to local occupation and do it like that. However, I don't think that that's necessary. I just wanted to throw that out there, I guess.
How many people are on stack, Erin?
There's Evan and Brando and Jasmine just found somebody's keys.
They were half buried right next to me.
shit, man.
No!
Yeah.
See, I'm looking out for you.
Dude, I
Nathan.
love you. I was not gonna be able to holy shit. Okay.
So Evan and Brando are on stack.
Yeah, I don't know if this is going to be a popular proposal or not, but I wanted to formally propose that for Occupy Florida, we do create a working group to deal with the People's Plan. Now, I understand, and this was said about my last proposal, that it's not necessary to have a GA consensus to do that, but I'm also not under the impression that there's any restrictions on what the GA can come to a consensus on, whether or not it's strictly necessary to have a GA consensus for those things. The reason I think a GA consensus in this area is important is the same reason that was stated by other people that my last proposal might be cool to have a consensus on. This is because it does provide us with some accountability. We here are creating this group, and some of us who, for example, put this topic on the agenda and have been speaking on it, might actually be interested in being a part of that group. The reason I'm proposing this is because People's Plan has come up here, and we've taken some time with it, and I think it's gone more smoothly than we could have anticipated, but we haven't gotten into many specifics, and this is going to continue to come up at GAs here whenever Florida meets for the foreseeable future. That's really cool. What would be even cooler is if we had a working group to bring concrete, well-hammered out proposals and perspectives to the GA, and I think that's why we should get a consensus to create that working group. I yield.
Do we want to get consensus to create that working group?
Point of clarification from Lars.
You said there's a measure of accountability. What's the measure of accountability?
I'm sorry, I was using the word measure to mean like a small portion, not that there's a specific way to measure it. What I meant is that we will all feel more accountable to being a part of this working group if we have an interest in it. If the GA is consented to creating the working group, then just leaving this GA and saying, oh, well, anyone can create this working group at any time. That's what I meant.
Let's create it now.
Exactly.
I still don't understand what the accountability is.
The accountability is...
how is it different from you saying, I want to be in this working group, who wants to deal with it?
those are different processes, and I don't feel that I can adequately answer your question in words right now without wasting everybody's time, but I'd be happy to talk about it later.
Point of information.
Accountability. Just because 3 months ago we said we were going to do something, and if we at least are showing steps towards it, it actually makes us look accountable. Makes us look like we care about what we talked about, even if it was 3 months ago.
So, temperature check, is there support for this GA consensus decree?
Oh, that must be shit.
Yeah, bug.
Both were just like, maybe we shouldn't have bodies have rejected the proposal.
I got a bug and he like swallowed his spit. Like,
oh, they both just start hacking up their face.
I was ready for the wave of vomit to come my way, person by person.
Okay, let me just reflect a little bit of what I've heard during this conversation. I've heard there are still questions of representation. There are also questions of accountability. I've also heard using this document as a to-do list, as a brainstorming means. I've heard the idea of picking one thing, either GAs or as a group, and focusing in on it. And then I heard Evan's proposal, which is to have this GA formally create a working group. Honestly, I thought there was one already, but to formally create a working group for the People's Plan. To do what exactly? I'm not really
sure. In my explanation of my proposal, the purpose of this working group, as I see it, is so that when we do deal with this again at the next Florida gatherings, or online or in any other context, the main purpose, as I see it, of this working group is to come up with well-formed proposals for how to deal with the People's Plan, where a lot of the issues that would otherwise be brought up here can be hashed out in advance.
So is that, you're saying you're creating a working group that's going to create a process by which the gathering of Florida occupations can work on similar types of things? That's what I'm hearing.
I don't think that's quite what I said. What I meant is that, for example, in general, proposals have a much easier time passing at GA when they have been previously hammered out by a working group, in my experience. And so I'm attempting to create a working group specifically to deal with all issues dealing with the People's Plan, so the people who really want to deal with the People's Plan and who do the things like put it on the agenda today have a forum to interact with each other. In other words, the people who are strongly opinionated with issues with respect to People's Plan have an ability to form consensus among themselves, or at least attempt to do that, so that we don't have to spend GA time where a lot of people are really not that interested in this issue anymore, deal with malformed or partially formed or impromptu proposals where they deal with well-formed proposals that have already been through a consensus-based review process.
I'm so confused about this.
So it all sounds really good. I just don't. I mean, unless are people volunteering to be on the group? I mean, are you volunteering to be on the People's Plan Committee? I mean, otherwise,
totally waiting for you guys to consent on me doing that, and like formally, and I'm one of those volunteers.
So,
that's my point of information.
Okay. So is there interest in the group for the creation of a working group to work on the People's Plan? I'm not sure what working on the People's Plan means, but to work on the People's Plan.
Looks like Jasmine has a point of information.
From what I understand, the People's Plan Working Group covers everything else that you had said before it in your original list. We'll work on who does it, how to get representation, what the issues are, how to do everything. Everything that we've discussed at pretty much every state GA so far will be held in the People's Working Group, People's Plan Working Group, so we can get that done. Get a time frame for it, send it out to the different people that are still interested in doing this, bring it back here to the next GA. Get everything perfect and shiny and lovely and perfect again, and then bring it here so we can have a nice discussion of it finished.
So you're proposing that the people here who are interested in working on the people's plan want to have a formally called working group that this group has concerns from.
Yes,
That was
that is exactly it.
How does the group feel about creating this working group that will work on the people's plan?
Point of information?
Our
Right.
application perhaps. Is there some reason that we would want to use a wording, working group as opposed to committee perhaps?
Same thing. Can we get consensus on it?
So,
Yeah.
I mean, there was dissent, so I don't, and some people not really weighing in. I
The
mean,
dissent was.
Okay.
yeah, I mean, there's. What?
Can we hear the dissent?
Yeah, my concern is that it's just, I mean, it sounds good, it just seems very symbolic to me. There's been the opportunity for people to work on the people's plan for months and without any formal thing. So I guess what would address my concern is if the people who are saying we want a formal, like, GA consensus that we're going to be the people's plan working group, this is what we're going to do. We're the people's plan working group. When we come to the next GA, this is what we're going to have. We'll have a timetable, we'll have communication from other groups. You know, some bare minimum of thing. That to me sounds like accountability. To say, like, we're forming a working group and, you know, we don't know who it is or what we're going to do doesn't seem like accountability to me. Those are my concerns.
As the originator of the proposal, can I modify my proposal to attempt to deal with that dissent?
Should we hear maybe from other concerns first? Does anyone else with concerns want to address them so that we can get everything out and then directly respond?
Denise and Catalina.
Can we hear from the
Point of
concerns?
information.
Can we hear from the concerns first just to get it out, because then maybe the points of information can cover more stuff. Is that okay with everybody to do just for now?
So I share the same concerns that Lars has, and also since I'm not sure I understand exactly what working on the people's plan means, what's going to come back from that working group to our next statewide GA. I mean, I don't want to say that it's like some sort of concentration of power of people that are like working on all of the key issues for the state of Florida, but it sounds like if the people passionate about making this plan want to work together, then they can be working together. I'm not really sure I understand what I don't know.
So there's a bunch of points to process, and I'm a little dizzy, but I think it went Jasmine and Brando, and I saw somebody else over there.
A, this is in no way limited to only people that are here right now. We're not representing all of the cities, first off, so we can't represent everybody at this moment. People's plan working group can be open to anyone who wants to do it, and if you don't want to do it, that's perfectly fine. B, I plan to have more than was brought to this GA, which right now can be anything with a good starting point. I'd like to see us condense what we all agree on, first off. Put that to the side. Take what we have disagreements on. Talk to the individual cities that have disagreements on it and see what can be resolved and what can't be resolved during time that is not GA. Everything that we're talking about right now, your concerns, are things that we would have to work out within the working group. We can't tell you what we're going to do before we've had any discussion on what we're going to do. The point of this, to the best of my knowledge, is to say, Occupy People's Convention of Florida supports having a group to work on this. So in the future, when we want to have a discussion on this topic, we can actually have things to discuss. We can have things that have been funneled through us to any Occupy that wants to work on people's plan, has any input on it, or is not just saying fuck it. If we want to do this, we're going to try and facilitate communication between the different Occupies. So if there's major dissent on a certain issue, people can do this. People that you see raising point of information on every single concern, we're going to be in this. We've been to the different statewide GAs, and I'm pretty sure we're going to continue going to them. And if not, we can elect someone else from the People's Convention or People's Plan Working Group to present this at the next GA. But to say, when we just started talking about this, actually making a formal group during this GA right now. It's a little premature to have us plan out everything that we would want to do during that, in my opinion.
Brenda was next with the point of information, and then Evan.
Okay, so yeah, this, and then it just directly relates, everything, totally say what she says, and then it brings it to the point to where, you know, some cities and some, because of our rules of autonomy amongst ourselves, some groups, when a group comes to talk to a group, they ask, hey, did you get consensus from a group to be this, to organize this information from us? If we don't have your consent to organize that information, then there's gonna not be the cities that want to help share that information with us. We're just asking for this consent here, so we can continue to definitely work on this stuff in the future. Like it. Yeah.
Alright, so I don't know what trumps what anymore.
Point of process trumps everything.
Okay, so we got a point of process, then point of information, then point of information.
I've been losing my hand for like.
My point of process is that we just started a new stack that trumped the old stacks to do the same damn thing that the first stack was doing in the first place. Seems to me.
Do you guys have really a major objection to us forming a working group to deal with the problems that none of you want to deal with?
Cat?
So, okay, so what?
You're still on stack.
Good.
Okay.
The other one, I mean,
I want to hear everybody who's on stack right now. Who's next on stack? Let's just keep going with this. And then we'll
Which
try to
stack?
figure something out. There's not a which stack. There's just a stack.
There's only one stack.
There were a bunch of points of information.
Yeah, okay. Before everybody did the points of information and the point of process, Brenda and Whistle on stack before Katarina, because they've been on stack for a long time, before you raise your hand. So.
I also still am seeing people really abuse this point of information. I think it's being used like a
Me
direct
too,
response,
yeah.
and I don't think that works. Really, you know, I understand everyone has information that they want to share. That's what communicating is. But like, let's just try to really not abuse the process. It makes it really hard.
Clarifying question?
Yeah, I raised my hand to get on stack, and I thought that we made eye contact, so if I'm not already on stack, could I please be put on stack?
I was confused because you were amending your thing, and okay, so thanks for clarifying.
No, where it got to, the stack was closed, then there was a proposal at the end of it. There was already time allotted to it.
So, I mean, okay, so it feels to me in the group like there isn't consensus on this idea, because it sounds like people are still not clear about different issues of accountability, about what the definition of this group is, about the you know, why create this group as opposed to just getting together and doing it. I mean, I'm hearing a lot of sort of, it doesn't feel like the group is on the same page. Also, toxic. Do you have it figured out, Eileen? Who's next? Yeah.
So it's Brando, Whistler, Katarina, Evan, Alan.
Jesus.
Tell me about it.
Okay, so I'm the next on stack?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just going to point out that if we don't get consensus from this, there'll be no cities that want to work with us on it now, because now we will have officially not gained consensus, and the official outcome of this will have been to have not had consensus. So, like, I know it came to a point where we had a word hashing, and we thought we agreed, and then we went past it so we didn't agree, but now that this has happened, we have to get consensus or no consensus because this conversation exists. I'm sorry that it exists, but it's here. And we have to decide if we consent on it or don't consent on it, because we can't lie to other occupations and go, oh yeah, we got consent on this, when in the end, what it's looking like is happening is that this doesn't have consent. I yield.
Clarifying question?
To the facilitator of this. When this proposal originally came up and we took a vibe check on it, was there a block or was there dissent? Because if there's not a block and it only had, 2 dissents, is that not consensus here?
I I guess there were just concerns, so we were talking about them, which raised a whole another step. I mean, if we want to take another, and also I was doing a temperature check, not actual consensus, so we weren't quite there yet. Do you want to call for consensus? I mean,
On what?
Point process. I asked you after Lars spoke his dissent, because he was the only person I actually noticed down twinkling. I could have been wrong. I was
you were wrong. There was other down.
Understood.
Right.
I asked if I would be able to respond to those people as the originator of the proposal, and you said that I would be as soon as all the people who had concerns had been able to speak, and this has devolved into something else. So before we attempt to take consensus, I'd like to be able to do that.
Point of process.
So, I just want to kind of draw attention to the process of what's going on here and take a step back from the actual issue, because the consensus process involves this discussion of things, whatever the topic is. And one of the ways that happens is that if somebody makes a proposal and people have concerns about it, then we address those concerns, right? We try to reach some, general agreement that everyone can live with. And if we don't reach that, then we don't have consensus. So part of this whole thing is, it's frustrating. There's no doubt about it. I think it's frustrating on all sides. This is kind of the thing that makes Occupy unique. So personally, I'm not attached one way or the other. I didn't block, you're right. But I do think it's important to be cognizant of, whether we're trying to, I'm going to get my way using hook or crook. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that anybody's doing that. I'm just saying we want to build the relationships. That's the ongoing thing. We don't want...
more than one point. Weren't you on a point of process? Well, how did you jump me on stack?
It's a point of process.
Yeah.
Calling attention
That
to
sounds
the
like a
process.
lot more than one point. I'm saying,
That's a point.
wrap it up.
Okay.
That's a point.
Thanks for yelling at me.
Is it my turn yet?
Yes, it's
hey!
your turn.
Okay. This is all wrapped around consensus. And we did the same thing in Orlando when we were there. We're wrapping it around consensus. Consensus over one little word or a comma or where to put the period. And when you have a constant change, you can't really get a consensus. We have to have another word, some kind of a concept for exactly what we're getting. That's why we were there, and I kept saying it's a matter of a package of words that everyone is agreeing with. I would rather have that word, put behind the other word instead of in front of it, or some other little detail type of a thing, but we can't consent on anything, send it out to all these little factional places that are, some of them are 2 people, some of them are 200 people, and then expect it all to come back and still have any kind of coherent, cohesive consensus or anything even remotely resembling anything of that nature. So if that's the expectation we're trying to put together, we are not going to get there. As we've seen, we went to Tallahassee. We sort of got a kind of thing going on, but we really didn't consent on a real package to put together. And I suspect that we won't do it here either unless we come to some sort of arrangement about what we're really talking about when we say consensus, because it's more like basic general agreement. And if people have dissent, then that's fine. They should put their dissent into the package of. These people consist on this package of words exactly as so, and there was this dissent, that dissent, and such and such. Otherwise, I think we're just pissing in the wind.
So,
What's happening on stack?
Huh?
What's happening on stack?
What's happening on stack?
Lay it out for me.
Katerina, Evan, and Alan.
Okay, so, I guess I'm just really confused why we would be even, why some of us would be, and might I add, ones who, have even expressed that they don't necessarily feel too interested in whatever was going on with the People's Plan, although it had some good qualities to it. So, I guess what I'm trying to say is, why would why would there be dissent, and why couldn't we just consent to allowing us to do the work that, that we are pulling nails with right now? It's like, we really need to formulate what those things are that Lars is prompting for. Like, and that's going to be a whole discussion in itself and a whole line of work to decide what then we're going to do with that. And I just don't see that relevant to the basis of the proposal. I think the proposal being basic allows us, the ones who are interested, to work on it, rather than having anyone who might not be interested in it, having to discuss this for such a long time.
Evan, Nathan, did you have a point of information?
No, I'll cut myself off stack and we can just get consensus on this right now.
Okay, so Evan and Alan?
Okay.
Yeah, you gonna reread it?
Well, I'm on stack, right? So we can just do the stack thing. I want to preface this by saying that I don't know if people realize this. I stated my proposal because I'm actually not interested in people's plans. I was not a part of Occupy when the first People's Convention happened. I don't have the background to really understand all the dynamics there, and I hate having my time wasted at GA dealing with people's plans. Now, I appreciate that to a lot of people the people's plan is important, and I think that to them it should be important because they were part of creating it. And maybe some of the people that have come along after me are interested in it too. And I want to have a forum for those people who are interested in the people's plan to engage in a consensus-based, process-based discussion and see where it takes them. I think it's I really don't think this is intentional because I really respect everyone here, but it seems to me that there have been some inconsistent criticisms leveled here. For one, there's this question of, what exactly is this working group going to do? And I think that it's entirely fair to create a working group with a very general mission and allow that working group to further refine its mission and its process within the working group. I think that's how the working groups have been created in the past. I don't think that in the past there's been any requirement for any other working group for Occupy Florida to come up with such a detailed statement of its mission as part of the consensus that created that group or part of the process that created that group. And I think that if that requirement had been in place, we wouldn't have any working groups. That being said, it was pointed out before that this working group could just be created without a GA consensus. And I think that's still going to be true regardless of what happens here. But I think his point is very well taken, at least to me, that since this proposal was made, and we are discussing this here, if the GA fails to consent on the creation of this working group and allowing that working group to sort of figure out within the people who are interested in the people's plan what working on the people's plan is going to mean, then we would be, as a GA, in my opinion, delegitimizing any working group that chose to form itself after this GA. And I would hate to see the people who really want to put their time and energy into this delegitimized by our failure to act. So I'll restate my proposal. My proposal is to create a working group within Occupy Florida to deal with the people's plan and to figure out their own mission. And I would suggest tasking that working group to report back by the next Florida convention and earlier if possible with, at the minimum, a mission statement for the year.
So, I know there are more people on stack. I am really interested in hearing what they have to say, but there's a proposal on the table to, as Evan just stated, to create a working group to deal with the people's plan, which sounds like that involves creating a process for figuring out what that means, because there isn't one. So how do people feel about creating a working group?
Let's do it.
Are there any concerns? Any stand aside? Okay.
Occupy Florida's first working group.
Yeah.
Standing aside.
Cool. Yeah.
Oh, wait, I want to block it. Sorry.
Point of process.
I just want to encourage people not to interrupt one another or to yell at each other.
Thank you.
I apologize.
So next on stack is Alan and then Denise.
No, you can stop taking stuff.
Okay, so stack is clear.
So, can we move on to the SERCO statement?
Okay, thank you guys for forming Occupy Florida's first working group.
Don't know what it means, but there it is.
Do we ever
Yeah,
know what it means?
it's really awesome.
It means
because
progress.
It means
I
progress.
mean, what the hell is this
Novel
for God's sake?
So
It
the
means,
SERCO statement,
permission to
what
start.
was that for 2
That's what it
minutes?
means.
Get a consensus on the SERCO
Somebody
statement.
could read the SERCO statement.
Yeah.
Oh, and have Occupy Florida support it. Do we have that? Walton, do you have that? Lars, do you have the?
I don't have it, no.
Okay.
Go get it.
Okay, so.
Could I see that?
Yeah, yeah. Can we take a couple minute break? Yeah.
Just really quick before we take the break, I wanted to say something about the process that's happening here. And, you know, I understand that these are emotional issues for everyone and that we hold them dearly, but I just want to encourage everyone to think about how cool it is what we're doing here.
Awesome.
So can we take a couple minute break?
You know how that goes.
Yeah.
We consent to the GA to come back on time.
5 minutes.
One of the Apple
Can we take
kids
3
is
minutes?
really good at defining
Seriously, like, you don't even have to
bursting
cover it.
out
Lars.
with awesome things we appreciate.
It's fine, it's just 3 seconds.
Right, that's true.
You say 3, they'll come back in 20.
Alright,
I'm just gonna come and go the whole time.
Go pee! Go pee, people!
I'm glad I facilitated.
Okay.